Now I've got to end my trio of videos with a really, really interesting one from activistpost.com. Who would have ever thought just being a simple journalist, doing what journalists do, uncovering things, whether it's government fraud, corruption, stories that need to be told, whatever it is, and essentially becoming an enemy of the state, which leads to the government hacking into your house computer, your work computer, etc., and then trying to cover its tracks on the way out. Which also means they could put something, if they can do that, they can put something on your computer remotely. You know, some dirty stuff that's against the law. Oh, you were looking at, it's on your computer. FBI investigated it, said it's there. And then you're going to have to prove how it wasn't you. Someone put it there. Good luck. Not that that happened here, but it just goes to show you they could. But this is a case of a mainstream media reporter, I believe it was ABC or CBS, CBS, and she felt she got to see firsthand what the government's capable of doing, and now she's had to file lawsuits to try to figure out what's in my FBI file, and they refuse. By law, they have to give it up, but they're refusing. We don't want to show it. I think because it's going to prove we've been hacking into her computer illegally. Okay? I think that's what it's going to prove. But this is a case that needs to be spoken about. People have to understand this isn't hearsay. This is her story. I mean, this is her story. I'm just going to read it to you. This is real. It really happened. There's a real lawsuit. She's really involved. This is the lengths that the government will go to shut you up from exposing their rottenness that needs to be exposed. Actual hacking. Every reporter needs to understand Cheryl Atkinson's case against the U.S. government by John Rappaport, but this is for Activist Post. Cheryl Atkinson was a star investigative reporter for CBS News. After 2 decades at the network, she resigned on March 10, 2014. Among the controversial stories she covered, the Fast and Furious gun walking program, in which the government purposely allowed licensed firearm dealers to sell weapons to illegal straw buyers, hoping to track the guns to Mexican drug cartel leaders and then arrest them, which we know they didn't find not one of them. It never went anywhere, and then the guns were used and that actually killed 2 border guards. Fantastic. The Benghazi attacks and murders, another one, and the CDC fraud in grossly overestimating the number of swine flu cases in America. Which reminds me to remind you, all of these little diseases and Ebola and measles, every time one comes out, I'm the first one to tell you, don't believe it, don't go get your stupid shots, don't do anything, it'll go away. It'll be yesterday's news. Latest round of garbage, Zika virus. Oh, it's in Florida. Zika. That's gone. It's all gone. Out of the news. No more. Bird flu, swine flu. Gone. Nothing. So this lady was covering it, and government don't like that. Atkinson now hosts a weekly television news program known as Full Measure for the Sinclair Broadcast Group. She writes at CherylAtkinson.com. Atkinson is also engaged in a struggle with the federal government. She writes, I just filed my latest appeal to the FBI's improper withholding of my FBI file. You may not know it, but every American citizen, even a lowly reporter, is entitled to see his FBI file if one exists. I queried Atkinson about this yesterday, and she replied, I find it unacceptable that the federal government, and specifically the nation's top law enforcement agency, Department of Justice, would be party to improperly, and I believe unlawfully, withholding public and personal materials that we, not they, own. For some reason, Atkinson isn't permitted to see her FBI file. Why? The answer may lie in the government's role as a hacker of Atkinson's computers. She writes at her website, quote, I have a separate federal lawsuit underway against the federal government over illegal surveillance of my work and home computers by intruders using software proprietary to a U.S. intelligence agency. The intrusions were detected and confirmed by 3 independent forensics exams in 2013. So far, the government has not cooperated with my lawsuit. For example, without even filing the required motion, government officials failed to show up for a properly noticed deposition in the case. End quote. And here from a press release are details about the hack of Atkison's computers. On December 27, 2014, investigative journalist Cheryl Atkinson filed administrative claims under the Federal Tort Claims Act against the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. Postal Service, and certain unnamed employees and/or agents of the federal government. Shortly thereafter, a lawsuit was filed in the District of Columbia alleging certain violations of Atkinson's constitutional rights based on information implicating the federal government in illegal electronic monitoring and surveillance of her home and business computers and phones. As outlined in the claims, 3 separate computer forensics exams revealed that intruders used sophisticated remote capabilities to monitor Atkinson's work. The intruders installed and periodically refreshed software used to exfiltrate data, obtain Atkinson's passwords to various personal and work accounts, access the CBS News computer system, and monitor Atkinson's audio using a Skype account. Forensics also revealed evidence of U.S. government-related involvement in the surveillance. Through a Freedom of Information Act request, Atkinson learned that the FBI opened a case on her computer intrusions in 2013, listing her as the victim, but the agency failed to interview her in the investigation or even notify her that one had been opened. To date, well, that's because they know who did it. It was them. To date, U.S. government officials have failed to fully cooperate with Atkinson's efforts to learn about the intrusions and have failed to fully respond to numerous requests to help provide information necessary to learn the truth. As a consequence of the government's choice to ignore Atkinson's requests, Atkinson and her family have chosen the only available option left to them. End quote. So yesterday I asked Atkinson, in your opinion, why were your computers hacked? And she wrote, on the lawsuit over the hacking, the reason I had my computers analyzed in the first place is because government sources had approached me and told me I was likely being surveilled due to the reporting I had been conducting, especially some of my CBS News stories that were published online. They specifically mentioned my Benghazi reporting, which I began in the fall of 2012. The forensic analysis were able to determine multiple unauthorized remote intrusions of my computers using software which is proprietary to a federal government agency, that occurred prior to my Benghazi reporting, however. One such intrusion, for example, occurred in February 2012. We have the date, time, and method of entry. And another in July 2012. Stories I covered during this time period included green energy waste stories that the Obama administration worked very hard to stop from airing on CBS, as well as Fast and Furious reports, among others. Among other details, the forensics exams were able to determine that the intruders not only accessed the CBS system and used Skype to surreptitiously listen in on conversations, but also examined several files and photos related to Fast and Furious. In addition to 2 separate forensic exams that I had conducted, CBS hired a forensics company that confirmed the remote intrusions. The analyst informed CBS, among other things, I have definitive evidence that shows commands were run from Cheryl's user account that she did not personally authorize during the time frame of concern, and this history has been deliberately removed from Cheryl's hard drive by a third party. Read Atkinson's next paragraph carefully. It is explosive. It indicates Department of Justice lying and a cover-up. Quote, a 4th forensics exam conducted by Department of Justice Inspector General of a different computer, only my personal computer that I asked them to examine in hopes they would recognize the government software. CBS would not give them the CBS computers in question, also confirmed the suspicious activities and that a third party deliberately removed files from my personal computers to cover their tracks. However, this information was omitted from a summary of the Department of Justice IG released, which instead made it incorrectly sound as though intrusions had been ruled out. The Department of Justice IG will not lawfully respond to Freedom of Information Act requests for the documentation showing the investigators confirming the suspicious activities. I know the documents exist because the investigators let me review them during the investigation and briefed me on their findings. The 2012 intrusion dates I mentioned were not the sum totals of intrusions. They were 2 dates we know of during which software was planted in my computers. The software was then used on an ongoing basis to access files, watch my keystrokes, etc. CBS agrees that Atkinson's computers were hacked, and here's an excerpt from August 7, 2013, an article posted at the CBS News website. CBS News announced Friday that correspondent Cheryl Atkinson's computer was hacked by an unauthorized, external, unknown party on multiple occasions, confirming Atkinson's previous revelation of the hacking. CBS News spokeswoman Sonia McNair said that a cybersecurity firm hired by CBS has determined through forensic analysis that Atkinson's computer was accessed by an unauthorized, external, unknown party on multiple occasions in late 2012. Evidence suggests that this party performed all access remotely using Atkinson's accounts. While no malicious code was found, forensic analysis revealed an intruder had executed commands that appeared to involve search and exfiltration of data. This party also used sophisticated methods to remove all possible indications of unauthorized activity and alter system times to cause further confusion. CBS News is taking steps to identify the responsible party and their method of access. Several months ago, Atkinson had reported suspected intrusions of her computers, including her CBS News Network computer, prompting CBS News to hire a firm to look into the hacking. In his comment, he says, my comment, as indicated at the beginning of this article, Atkinson is unable to see her FBI file. The FBI won't show it to her. This is a breach of law. They won't show it to her because it would reveal the FBI and Department of Justice stance on her investigative work at CBS. They did not like her work. They considered it a threat. They considered it an exposure of truths they wanted kept under wraps relating to Fast and Furious, Benghazi, green energy waste, etc. That FBI file would lend further strength to Atkinson's claim that the Department of Justice has been lying about what they found when they investigated the hacking of her computers. For example, they found that some of their own people, FBI, Department of Justice, and or people at other government agencies had done the hacking. Major media consider this story dead until further notice, but independent journalists all over the world shouldn't. They should cover it aggressively and keep the pot boiling and make sure the public understands what is at stake. The right to report actual news free from government interference and intimidation, and the right to call government on the carpet in court under oath to account for their crimes. And that is exactly why I'm doing this video, to spread the news. We cannot tolerate this as American citizens. Remember the guy that created the whole NSA database stuff? He was interviewed later. He'd already retired. And said, if I would have known the intention of the government was really to go and spy on the people, I would have never written the software that did this. Because it was always given out as it was going to be for national security, keep the bad guys out, external threats. And then it got to the point where we could tell they're monitoring everybody in America. This is for Americans, not for anybody on the outside. They don't care about that. This is strictly to watch what Americans are doing. And he said that, again, paraphrasing. But he said it. I saw the interview. And he felt bad. He looked legitimately like, if I would have known, I would have never have done this. So she wants her FBI file, and they don't want to give it up. How much do you want to bet if they finally give it up? Redacted, 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 or missing, missing, missing. We don't know what happened. The FBI has a history of losing evidence when it needs to. So, just doing my part, relaying the story. Take care.